Hi everyone, welcome to guided journaling number 15. Why do I dislike them so much? I'm Kimberly, co-owner of Tokyo Pen Shop, and we are going to do another short and sweet exercise about processing those interpersonal conflicts we have. I've done a video with this kind of theme before, but with a different approach, and I'll link it here in case any of you need extra help on this beyond this new video, so you can take a look at that. I am still getting a lot of requests for this type of interpersonal conflict video, so I thought, since there are so many ways of approaching this, I would just take the time to do another way for you. So, I was originally going to call this video, Why Do I Hate Them So Much? But some people are really triggered by the word hate. And, so if I use hate in this video, I just mean having an extreme dislike for somebody. So, it could be, do whatever kind of suits you. You might be thinking, why does that person annoy me so much? Something like that. So I am going to show you just a few questions that you can ask yourself and journal on to help you process through some of that dislike you have of other people. And at the end of it, rather than kind of reinforcing your dislike of them, it's hopefully going to help you process through some of it and actually kind of help you see they're not so bad after all. Maybe it'll teach you something about yourself. I'm gonna do a completely made up example in this just because I can't provide my friends and family anonymity through these videos. So anything I write here in this video is just completely made up, I promise you. So the first thing I want you to do after you have grabbed a favorite journal and pen is I want you to consider who has wronged you. You're gonna think of just one person. It could be a couple if the scenario was like something both of your parents say absolutely did together toward you. But honestly, it's going to be much better if you just do one individual person, because even in the case of an interaction with a couple, it probably was not as sort of joint as you think it was, so we want to just do our best to think of one person and one scenario at a time. Now, you could do a bunch of those back to back, but for now, I just want you to think of the one. So, who has wronged me? Okay. So now, as I always mention, at home, you can pause the video and kind of do it with me, or you could just watch me doing this whole process. And then after you watch the video, do it on your own. It's sort of whatever you like, whatever works for you. So I'm going to journal about the scenario where I have a friend, Janine, who keeps asking me for money and never pays me back, okay? And so I'm really angry. I'm so annoyed with this person. So I'm going to be journaling about Janine. And after you think about the situation you're going to be journaling about, I want you to ask yourself, what has this person done to wrong you? And so at this point, don't overanalyze it. I really just want you to write what you're feeling. So I'm going to say she often asks to borrow money and doesn't pay me back. So when you're done with that, I want you to consider what makes this wrong. So in this situation, my friend asked me for money, doesn't pay me back. Can my friend force me to give her money? No. So my friend's not taking money from me, but so far I feel like she shouldn't ask me for money. So maybe I'll put, she shouldn't ask me for money. Now, anytime you're using in your journaling words like shouldn't, should, those are actually red flags of things to really explore further, because it's like, why do you think she shouldn't ask you for money? Is it because you're then put in the position where you have to set a boundary and you don't like setting boundaries? That's another issue. That might mean you need to work on setting boundaries. We need to get more comfortable with, people asking us for stuff. We need to get more comfortable with saying no when we actually want to say no, so that we're not resenting it later and it's not turning into hatred, right? So because I've written down shouldn't, I know that is a red flag for me to really kind of consider that. And when I'm asking myself the question, what makes this wrong? I'm actually kind of, forced to admit it's not wrong of her to ask me for money. But I hate setting boundaries. I've done a Boundaries 101 type video in this series also, so I'll post that as well in case you want to explore more this topic of boundaries specifically. So as I'm processing through this question of what makes her action that's ticked me off, what makes it wrong, I'm really kind of realizing to myself that this isn't an issue so much of her wronging me, okay? And I could say, she doesn't pay me back. Well, why is this wrong? Because I believe she should pay me back? Another red flag, right? I'm using the word should. Why do I believe she should pay me back? Have I specifically told her I want to be paid back? Or am I just assuming that anyone who borrows money from someone should know? Am I not having compassion for her situation? Am I lending money to my friend who I know doesn't have the ability to get it to pay me back and still expecting her to pay me back? Like, what is really going on here beyond, I think this person is disrespecting me? So now, when you've kind of explored these questions of what makes what they're doing wrong in your eyes, I want you to consider, why do I interpret their actions the way I do? So why do I interpret them as wrong? I might interpret her actions as wrong because I would never borrow money from someone and not pay them back. That's just not something I would do. Well, why do I assume everyone else has that same sort of like code of conduct? And especially when you're considering someone who's maybe had to borrow money, what is their life like that they maybe can't pay you back? Or do you just have a belief that they can pay you back without even necessarily knowing all the details of their finances, right? So why do I interpret her actions as wrong? So I feel borrowing money and not paying back is disrespectful because she's not considering my financial needs. So you might say that. Well, do you know this to be true? Isn't this an assumption that, she's not considering your financial needs? Couldn't it be that she has considered your financial needs and she has decided, hey, she has plenty of money to lend me. It's not gonna ruin her, day, week, month, year if I don't pay her back this $500 that I needed to be able to pay my rent. She's got plenty, So this is where you get to start kind of thinking about why you make the assumptions you make, and you start to think about the perspective of the other person that you think has wronged you. The next thing I want you to consider, because this really gets into trying to, without assuming, just go through the exercise of looking from their point of view. I want you to ask yourself, what would I have done if I was in their exact situation? So what would I have done in their situation? Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, well, if I was in their situation, I would have borrowed money from my mom and dad. And then you might realize, oh, they don't have a stable, mom and dad to borrow money from. Or you might think, I would have sold my car so that I could pay my rent before I would borrow money from a friend. But then you might think, oh, she doesn't have a car to sell. Or if she sold her car, she couldn't get her kids to and from school, and she couldn't get to work. You really start to go down this path that helps lead you to why they might be doing what they're doing. And perhaps it's, oh, if I were her, I would have asked to borrow money from me because I always say yes and I never ask for it back. I'm just kind of, she doesn't know that I'm silently seething about the whole scenario, right? So getting led to this question and asking this question of what would you have done if you were in their exact situation really starts to get you to seeing things from their point of view. And the point of it really isn't to help them, it's to help you. So that is what makes this such a good journaling exercise. And you could do this every time you get really irritated by somebody. Not every situation deserves the same treatment. So I'm in no way telling you, if somebody's really harming you, then I'm not trying to encourage you to just accept it and convince I'm not asking you to convince to gaslight yourself about the situation. These are more these are for less serious situations than if somebody's physically abusing you or something like that. If you get to this point where you've considered what you would have done in their exact situation and you still need a little bit more, then the other question I like to ask in my journaling is, can I make sense of their actions? Can I make their actions make sense? So can I make sense of her actions? And so maybe I can think, she's desperate, afraid of losing her apartment. Sort of hard to think really seriously about a complete made-up topic. She's worried for her kids. She thinks I have plenty, and if she were in my situation, would help her desperate friends or something like that, you know? So the hope, again, is you can come away from this feeling a little bit better about that person in your life who's just been totally driving you nuts. And again, you might want to look at one of those other videos I mentioned, like the boundaries video, because in so many cases what you're going to find is that you hate this person because they just are always disrespecting your boundaries, but you realize, well, you haven't set clear boundaries with them. So I think that's something really worth exploring. All right, well, as always, let me know if you have any suggestions for future guided journaling videos. I read all of your comments on these videos and I do find them very helpful. If you like this series, make sure you are liking and subscribing so that I know you want me to keep making them. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.